Alright guys, welcome back to another mcreator procedure tutorial. Today what we're going to be looking at is two blocks. We're going to be looking at the math block for having certain operations. That's actually a really useful tool for a lot of things, and I've used it quite a bit. And the other thing that we're going to be looking at is number blocks. So we're going to be experimenting with some of those, and I'll be explaining those. So let's get into it. So to find the two blocks that we're going to be working with today, you can find them under the math tab. The number block is the one with the 0 right at the top here. Basically what this does is it allows you to set a number, which allows you to later on use it with certain things. So for example, if you wanted to offset the coordinates or something, you could always do something like +1 or something like that, but we'll get into that part a little bit later. Basically this value supports both integer and decimal points, so we could do something like 1.999 and that would be a valid number. It can also support solid numbers, though when you're actually using these numbers, in most cases when you're actually combining it with math and stuff like that, it will turn to a float, which is a decimal point, not a integer, which is what you're seeing right now. When you're working with that, you can also find the other math block here, which is a kind of like a block that you can manipulate numbers with. There's a whole bunch of different operations. If you click on the plus sign, it will give you a whole bunch of different things to experiment with. I'll be covering the basic math ones, the adding, subtracting, multiplication, and division, as well as mod, which I'm familiar with. So mod's actually really useful. We'll be taking a look at that a little bit later on. What we're going to do is we're going to set a variable, and we're going to go ahead and print out some of these things. So let's go ahead and just set a number variable, and I'm going to go ahead and set it to num, short for number, but it's not exactly number, so it should be fine to use. And we're going to create that. We're going to set a variable. Now, if you're not familiar with how to do variables and stuff, local variables, I do have a video. It should be on the top of the screen right now, so you guys can go check that out. We're going to just set the default value for this to 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and print out this value. So we're just going to print out the local variable itself. So we're just going to print out num. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take that number, and we're going to basically manipulate that by, we're going to add it to 1 first, and then we're going to see what that value is. Actually, let's go ahead and set this to like 4 so we can actually see what we're doing. We're first going to get the value that it is. So in this case, what I'm going to do is test if it's 4. We're going to add 1 and see what that value is. And then after that, what we're doing is we're subtracting 1 and we'll see what that value is. And then for multiplication, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that by 2.5, make it a little bit more interesting. Then what we're going to do is we're going to divide that by 2. So we use the division, which is the one that is the slash. The multiplication is the asterisk. And then just to make things a little bit more interesting, what we're going to do is we're going to mod this value, and we're going to test if that mod is, we could try 3 actually. So we'll mod 3, and then there should be 1 left over. So basically it would make that full cycle of 3, and then it would go and then start working on the second round, which is going to be 1. 4 minus 3 is 1, so it would be on that second round there. Now, if you have a higher number, what it's going to do is if you have like multiple, it's like 12 or something like that, it will keep the numbers between 3 and 0, I believe. So it will basically keep rounding the value down. This is really handy for things like time, which is a constant number, and you need to find certain things like what the hour is or something like that, or even the minute in game. So you would mod this by 24,000, and then that would allow you to get exactly what time it is, because the time's always constantly increasing, so you need to know where that is. We'll experiment with that a little bit later, but let's go ahead and just run this in game, and we'll give that a try. So we're in game, and I'm going to pause, and then we're going to close out of this, and then we'll pop back in game, and we'll right click somewhere, and we should see all the different values that have come up. Let's go ahead and go over what they are. So first value, we're getting what our variable number is. So that is 4. We know that's 4 for sure. And then what we're doing is we're adding 1, which gives us 5. And then we're subtracting 1 on this second line, which gives us 3. And then for multiplication, what we're doing is multiplying that by 2.5, which I think gives us 10 apparently. And then division, which we did divided by 2, which will give us 2 because half of 4 is 2. And then our mod, what that's doing, it mods it by 3. So the remainder of the next loop is basically 1. So we were able to count exactly from 1 to 3, and then it goes back to 1 when it comes to the 4th one. So that's basically how that part works. Now let's go ahead and see this in practice. Basically what I'm doing is I'm getting the world time, and then what I'm doing is I'm printing out kind of a combo message with the create text. We haven't gotten into that just yet, but we will. What I'm doing is I'm getting the entire world time, and then what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and see what that value is when it's modded by 24,000. So this will actually give us our real time. Then this will basically give us the full world time in the game itself. And that's just saving the world time. This part right here is just making sure that it only prints out on client side, so we don't need to worry about the value being on world side. What I'm going to do is just save this, and then we'll pop into game. Time usually starts at 6 a.m. on 0, so then every hour after that is 1,000. So we can kind of break down of what the time is. So let's go ahead and clear this, and we'll start right clicking on some blocks. So first off, let's click on this block here, and we can see the time itself is only 4,548, which is about 4 hours in from 6 o'clock. And then our actual time is 28,548. So you can see that that value needed to be modded in order to actually calculate the time itself. If we click again somewhere else, we can see what the time is advanced to. So now it's advanced to 5,151, which is 5 hours, give or take, more than 6 o'clock. And the world time is 29,151. So it's basically the number on the left hand side is always increasing. So that's one case where you would use mod to basically calculate what the actual time is. So from the modded time, you can actually use that to calculate actual time itself in the game and actually see what the value is. So that's basically it for today. We got just the assignment to cover. So if you want to play around with this, I suggest playing around with a mod as well as different operations for the division, multiplication, and adding and subtracting. And let me know in the comments what your favorite part of the video was, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Peace out.